Hey everyone, and welcome to another JavaScript tutorial where I'm going to show you how to build Pong using JavaScript and jQuery. And if you see up here in the top right, this is the actual app we're going to be building, which is basically Pong, where you're playing against a really basic AI who just kind of randomly moves up and down at different intervals. So nothing too special, and then when someone loses, it's going to show an alert and say player blue has won or player red has won. And that's basically it. So let's go ahead and dive down into the code and get started. All right, so if you've seen any of my other videos, you probably already know my setup. I'm using Visual Studio's Code on the left, and on the right, I have my Chrome developer tools and the browser opened up. It's nothing too special. Some things I'll point out about this project is, of course, we're using jQuery, which we include up here in the script tag from cdnjs.cloudflare.com. And another project or package we're going to be using is called jQuery overlaps. And basically, this is the package right here on GitHub, and what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to take two divs and check if they are overlapping in any way whatsoever. Basically, just to see if the ball has hit one of the paddles or whatnot. And of course, we have my repo here, which is going to be called JS-Pong, which throughout this tutorial, I'll commit little changes, and you can kind of grab them as I commit them if you want to. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started with trying to build Pong. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to build kind of a player board, which I'm not going to use HTML5 canvas. I'm going to use just normal DOM elements. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to build a div. I'm going to give it an ID of Pong. And that's so we have kind of a div that we can put our paddles and whatnot. So we have Pong, an ID. I'll go over here and just give it some style. So I'll say background color is black. I'll say width is 600 pixels. Height is 300 pixels. Save that. And we have a nice little board on the top right of our browser now. Some more things I want to do is it'd be nice to align this. So I'll say text align center. Probably make this display. Actually, I could do margin 0 auto to center that one as well. So now we have awesome Pong and this little Pong board, or arena, I guess, which is rendered right here in the browser. Some more things we want to do is we made the board. Let's go ahead and try to make the paddles, right? So on the left side, we're going to have the player paddle. So I'll say div ID of player hyphen paddle. Save that. And of course, we want to style that. So I'll go back to styles. And over here, I can do ID of player paddle. And I'll say background color of blue. And let's just go ahead and give it a height of 100 pixels and a width of 20 pixels. Save that, and we have a little panel here. And I don't really like that blue. It's a little harsh. So I'm going to go ahead and use a color that I already found, which is this light blue. It's like a nice pastel blue, so we'll use that. And then for the AI paddle, let's do something similar. So I'll go over here. I'll go ahead and copy this and name that AI paddle and save it. So then over here, I'll say hashtag, which is a unique identifier for a ID on a DOM element. And then I want to go ahead and just kind of bring over those same attributes or styles. But instead, this one's going to be a red. I'll go ahead and save that. And the main difference between this paddle is it's going to be on the right side of the arena, right? So what I can do is I can just say right of 0 pixels. And if I name that AI paddle, it should show up. So right now we're running into an issue where they're just kind of aligned to the left. There's a couple of things I forgot to set. So like the first one is I need to set position of relative on this. And here I'm going to go ahead and just do position of absolute on both of these. So position of absolute. If I save that, the paddles will go to the right and left. And we can kind of, center these vertically in a second. One thing you notice, like let's do a little bit of CSS refactoring, is we have a lot of these same attributes on both of these paddles. So something good that you should do is pull that out into another class where we have width, height, and absolute. So go ahead and do this. You can remove those. Go ahead and save that. That's going to break because we haven't added the class of paddle to either of these. So I'll say class of paddle. And I'll just go ahead and indent this on a new line. Cool. So we have our paddles. We have our arena, which we're calling Pong. The last thing we want to do is make a ball. So I'll do div of class ball. And of course, we're going to go back and we're going to start adding some styles to the ball because, you know, that's what you got to do. So for the ball, I'm going to go ahead and just make this like a yellow color. So first I'll do background color of a pastel yellow that I found. And I want to make this width of 20 pixels and height of 20 pixels. Save that. And I think it's hidden behind the blue paddle right now. So if I did like left of 200 pixels, you can kind of see. Probably need to absolute position it. There we go. I'll give it a top of 200 pixels for now. Okay, so we have a nice little square ball, which is not what we want. So we can do border radius of 50% on this, and boom, we have a ball and we have two paddles and we have a board. So we're making a lot of good progress in a little amount of time. So now I'm just going to go ahead and commit what we have. So I'll say initial setup of the Pong board, paddles, and ball. Go ahead and check mark that. So we committed it and go back. Cool. So now we get into the fun part where we actually start defining some JavaScript logic to manipulate the paddles or the boards or the ball. So I think the first thing that we should probably start with is let's try to make the left paddle, the player paddle or the blue paddle move depending on where the player moves his mouse. So let's dive into the main.js file, which if you see here on line 20, I have it included already. I did that setup beforehand. But of course, if you have everything hosted, you could just simply refer to it using script source main.js and it will load it from your file system. I don't think I showed you the file system yet for this project, but basically we have 4 files. We have index in HTML, main.js, style CSS, and then our license file, which you don't really need to care about at this point. Cool, so let's move on to the blue paddle. We're trying to move it based on the user's mouse location. So the first thing we should do is just go ahead and declare a couple of constants at the top so that we can actually grab the DOM elements and manipulate them with jQuery. If you're not familiar with jQuery, I suggest learning it. It makes messing around with the DOM much easier than using vanilla JS. But whatever floats your boat. Some people hate jQuery, but I can make some pretty cool stuff with it, so I'll keep using it. So the first thing, again, we're going to grab this DOM element, and if I were to print this out, we can see that we have that DOM element right here. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we want to listen to mouse events. So when the player moves his mouse up or down on the board, on the arena, we want to move the paddle. So we can do money sign Pong, which is the variable name, and we can say on mouse move. So there's a function called mouse move on jQuery to basically listen to when you move the mouse on the board. And I can pass that a callback function. I like to put spaces between my function names and arguments, but and I'll probably forget semicolons throughout this because I tend to forget those, so my bad. But okay, so the first thing we want to do is figure out where the player's mouse is in regards or in relationship to the Pong board, right? So to do that, what we can do is we can say const top is equal to, and then math, actually I can do, let's see, evt dot, actually, how would you do this? So basically you'd want to get the event, and this event object will have like offset y or offset x and page y, page x. And we can use page y to kind of figure out where the user's mouse is located. So first what I'm gonna do is I'll just say const top is equal to event dot page y. And if I were to just go ahead and try to set the player paddle using that. So first, let's go ahead and grab that player paddle. So I can say player paddle is equal to player hyphen paddle. Now we have access to that DOM element in a variable, and we can do stuff with it. So when the player moves the mouse, we want to go ahead and set the CSS for the player paddle, and basically just give it the top attribute equal to what we just determined the event X is. So we might run into issues when we do this. Let's go ahead and just check it out and see what happens. So it's kind of working. You see how there's a little bit of offset, and that's because we need to subtract the offset of the top here. You notice there's probably like 100 pixels or something. So instead of just saying top is equal to event page Y, we need to take the mouse location that we're at and subtract the offset of the Pong thing. So if I do Pong offset of top and save that, and make sure you actually spell your functions correctly. So now it is following our mouse based on where we position it. And that's pretty cool. And there's probably other methods, like I know jQuery has a position method, and instead of using CSS, I could use offset or position. And I'm not sure how this works if I were to like, scroll the page. It might affect this functionality. I haven't really tested it. But for our purposes, we're just trying to make something really simple in JavaScript and jQuery. So again, the last thing you'll notice is that we can go off the screen by this height, right? So this DOM element is able to go off the screen until our mouse is off of the Pong board. So one thing we want to do is we want to make sure we don't go outside of bounds. So we can use like a math min function to limit it to only stop right there if we want to. So to do that, we can say math of min, and we want to take the min between the height, so Pong height, so pretty much the height of the black section or the black arena, and then subtract the height of the player's paddle, which is the blue thing. So take the min between these two, and that should limit it from going out of bounds when we move our mouse. So you see here, follows us there, and now we don't go out of bounds. Cool, so let's go ahead and commit this. We made some nice progress with moving the player's paddle. So I'll go over here and I'll say added functionality for moving the blue player paddle. Commit that. Go back to our code. So now that we've done the player paddle, let's go ahead and move on to the AI's paddle. Basically, what we want to do with the AI's paddle is make this move up and down, and maybe like randomly change directions every once in a while. But basically, just move up and down, and then make sure, again, you don't go out of bounds. So we could probably do similar functionality with this math.min if we want to. But the first thing we want to do is we need to do this on a timer, right? So there's a method called setInterval in JavaScript where you can set a interval or to call a function every 20 milliseconds or every second or whatnot. So we can just go ahead and make a function called update, which is going to do exactly that. It's going to update the AI paddle every 20 milliseconds. And then down here I can say set interval update of 20 milliseconds. And it helps when you're testing stuff out. Make sure you set this at 1,000 so you're not like constantly throwing errors if you accidentally type your code wrong. So for this particular function update, what we want to do is basically just have a direction set. So 1 is going to be for going down, and -1 is going to be for going up. So up here, I can just go ahead and declare a data structure called AI paddle, which is kind of the internal representation of what our DOM element is for the AI. So I can say the direction is going to be 1 when you first start off. And then down here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say on every tick or every update of this game, we basically want to move the AI paddle in a particular direction. So we say AI paddle top is plus equal to AI paddle direction times AI paddle of speed. And notice I haven't defined some of these. So up here I can say this is going to have a speed of 3, and it's going to have a top equal to, I'll just say 0 starting off. Because if you look over on the board, the the red paddle is at 0 when it starts off. And we want it to go down when the game first starts, so that's why we have a direction of 1 starting off. So every tick, we're going to go ahead and just update the AI paddle's top and move it in whatever direction it should be. But before we do that, actually, let me just go ahead and actually set up. So after we've updated the internal representation of the top, we just go ahead and set the CSS of the paddle. So I'll say money sign AI paddle CSS top is of AI paddle top. And of course, I need to bring this in over here. So if I say AI paddle and change this to AI paddle, we should get access to that. So now when I save it, every second, and in fact, I'll change this to every half a second. Every half a second, you'll see that thing just go down. And that's pretty slow, so I'm going to go ahead and move it to 100 milliseconds. And you should notice that it's going to go off the arena, and that's because we haven't really added the extra logic to go back up when it hits a certain point. So to first debug this issue, we need to kind of check that if the location or top is out of bounds of the arena minus its height, we need to go back up. So we kind of did that logic earlier up here. Right up here. So we can kind of take that code and kind of reuse it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if AI paddle top is greater than the PONG height, which is the arena height, subtracting the AI paddle height, we just want to go ahead and change the direction. So the direction is going to be equal to a -1, so it goes back up. If I save this and dreadfully wait for it to go down, we should notice it goes right back up. Boom, right when it hits the bottom. But now we're going to run into another issue where it's going to go out of bounds on the top because we haven't added that logic to kind of prevent it. So I'm actually going to cut these out and put it above, just because I like that we checked first before we update the position. And I'll say if AI paddle top is less than, because the board at the very top is 0. So if the top is less than 0, what do? Well, we just go ahead and just update the direction back to 1. And let me just go ahead and speed this up just a little bit so we're not waiting so long. So it hit the bottom of the board and went back up, and hit the top of the board and it went back down. And notice how it did go out of bounds just a little bit. So one particular solution to that is you increase your game update time and you reduce your paddle speed. So if I save this, it should go a little bit quicker. Cool, so now we have the AI paddle moving up and down, and we have the user paddle following the mouse. So let's go ahead and commit this. We made some great progress. Let's go ahead and commit it, and then move on to trying to get the ball to move. So I'll go commit, added functionality for moving the AI's paddle. Go ahead and save that. And I'll go back to the code. Cool. So the next thing that we're going to work on is moving the ball. So since there's kind of two things that we're updating in this game on every tick, I think it might help to kind of refactor or abstract those into two different methods. So down here, I'm going to say function update AI paddle. And we're going to just go ahead and copy and paste or cut all that code out and put it into that function. And of course, we're just going to go ahead and call that function here. And if we save this, we should notice that the functionality is going to work exactly how it did before, and it does. So we should do another method called update ball. And I'll go ahead and write a function called update ball. Save that, and we could start working on that type of logic. Okay, so this one is probably the most complicated, where all the logic is going to go into update ball because we need to test for collisions, and then we need to change the ball's angle, and then we need to update the ball's position based on the angle. So this is going to be the meat and potatoes of this game, and once we're past this, like super easy, the rest of the game is going to be easy to make. So starting off, again, let's go ahead and grab that ball from the DOM element. So if I go up here, say const ball is equal to, const money sign ball is equal to jQuery of ball. So we have access to that ball. And then down here, I'm going to do an internal representation of the ball. So I'll say const ball is equal to, I'll say top is, I think it was like 200. What did we set it in the style sheet? I think it was 200, 200. Okay. And technically you use jQuery and just grab the current position if you wanted to set this correctly, but I'm kind of doing the lazy man's way of doing it. So I'll just say top is 200 and left is 200. But the most important thing that we need to keep track of is the angle, which starting off, I want it to go, I'll say in the top left direction. So kind of break down the directions. If you know anything about radians, basically 0 should move us in the right direction. And then if you want to go up and to the right, you need to do negative pi divided by 4. And it's kind of flipped. You know anything about radians on an actual like 2D plane? Typically pi over 4 would be up and to the right. But unfortunately, coordinate systems for y swapped when you come to programming, because y goes positive when you go down. Oops. Y goes positive as you go down. So first thing we need to do is let's go ahead and declare a couple of constants for the different directions. So up here I'll say const up into the left is equal to -3 math of pi divided by 4. Const up into the right is going to be negative pi divided by 4. Const down into the left is going to be 3 times math dot pi divided by 4. And then of course const of down to the right is equal to math of pi divided by 4. So we have all of our 4 directions. And we're going to be using these to kind of set and update the ball's directions as it collides with things. So starting off, I'll say the angle of the ball is going to be up and to the right. So I can go ahead and save that. And of course, I'll say the speed of the ball is going to be equal to, let's just do 1 to start off and see how slow that is or fast that is. All right, so we have the internal representation of the ball ready to go. We have some directions kind of set up that we can use as we're updating the ball's positions. So let's go ahead and start updating the ball's positions. So if you know anything about like radians and cosine sine, you can get the x and y direction of a 2D like plane angle using math of cosine of theta and math of sine of theta. So what we can do on every update of the ball, we can just say ball of top is equal to math of sine of ball of angle. In fact, we can say plus equals because we want to keep on adding to the current ball's position and make it go towards an angle. And then here we could just say ball of speed times that. So it's going to add, whatever the scalar is of math dot sine times the speed. So it's going to move in a certain direction at a certain speed. So if I were to just go ahead and update the ball CSS, so I could say ball CSS, and I can say top is equal to ball.top of pixels. Save this. Let me go ahead and kind of minimize this so you can see more of the actual left. So you probably noticed the ball just completely went right off the screen, and that's a good start. Unfortunately, we haven't done the cosine aspect of it to make it move in the x direction. So let's go ahead and do that. So we say ball dot left plus equals ball dot speed times math of cosine of ball dot angle. And I'll say left is ball of left pixels. Now if I save this, the ball should go in the top right direction, which it is. So that's pretty cool. And just to kind of test out the other directions, just to make sure they're all right, you can go down here and say down and to the right. Make sure that that's working as expected. You can say up and to the left. Make sure that's working as expected. And you can say up into the, or down into the left. Cool. So again, we're going to start with up and to the right. And we're going to kind of start doing collision detection to make sure that it's not going out of bounds, or to kind of change the angles based on where it goes. Okay. So now when we're updating the ball, in fact, I'll just go ahead and move this stuff up. Underneath it, we just want to start checking if the ball has gone out of bounds or if it's collided with a paddle. So I'm going to assume that there's already a function called is ball overlapping with player paddle. So I could say if is ball overlapping with player paddle. And basically this function is going to return true if it's overlapping or false if it's not. In fact, let's just go ahead and change the direction to be up and to the left so we can actually test this out. Okay. So let's go ahead and make that function. So I'll say function is ball overlapping with player paddle. There's a lot of words in that, but basically for this function, we can use that jQuery -overlaps project that we brought in. And it's really straightforward. So what we can do in this function is just return if the ball overlaps with the player paddle. And if the length is greater than 0, that means it has overlapped. There is a collision. It's going to return all the DOM elements that ball overlaps with that same selector. So if I were to print this out, so it should print out when the ball touches the player's paddle. Let's just go ahead and test that out. So the ball is moving up and to the left. And when it touches this paddle, it should print out to the console. And it did, so it printed out overlaps 57 times. So the moment we overlap with the player's paddle, what do we need to do? We need to change the direction, right? And this is, I don't know if this is the best way to do this. There's probably some reflection angle stuff you can do. I'm kind of doing it like a lazy man's way of doing it because I didn't really look into the math. Basically, what we want to do is just change the ball's angle to something else, depending on how it was moving before. So if the ball dot angle was already equal to up and to the left, we just need to set the ball angle to up and to the right, right? So I'll save that, and we'll go ahead and see how that works. And this ball's moving so slow, so I'm probably going to update the speed in a second. Boom. So notice how it just went off the screen up here? Cool. So let's make the ball speed a little bit quicker, maybe like 1.5. Yeah, whatever. So we have that particular case handled for. The ball goes up to the right and it hits the paddle. We need to move it the other direction. The other case is if it's moving down into the left, we need to reverse the angle. So ball angle is equal to down into the right. And in this particular case, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to test this right off the bat. Probably not. But let's just go ahead and change the position of some stuff. So I'll say the ball is going to start at position 140. And it's going to start at left of 160. Save that. And here I'm going to go ahead and update. I think it's 160 and 140. So 160 and 140. Other way around, I think. Make that go down to the left. Hopefully this is all going to work out. So now I should be able to hit it, and it goes down into the right. All right, so that's pretty cool. We have one use case handled. Now let's do the other case where if it hits the computers or the AI's paddle. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this function and paste it. And then here I can say if ball overlapping with AI paddle. Change it to the AI paddle. And then I can just go ahead and call that same function inside our ball update method. Now in this case, if you look at the board, the ball can be going to the right and up or to the right and down. So I could say if the ball is going to up into the right, it needs to go down into the left. And if it's going down, or if it's going the other way, which would be down to the right, we need to go up to the left. So I can go ahead and save this and see how this works out for us. So I think what we need to do is change the initial direction of the ball to be up to the right and see if it'll hit the red paddle, hopefully. Yikes. Let me change the left to 460. Oops. That did not do what we're expecting. So the ball was going up into the right, and it should have been hit and went up to the left, not down to the left. Boom. And we can assume that the other one is going to be down to the left. So I kind of swapped those on accident, so my bad. Cool, so the next, or the final two things we need to check is if it goes out of bounds to the top or out of bounds to the bottom. So what we can do is we're going to do very similar and write two more functions. So here I can say function is ball overlapping top, and I could do function is ball overlapping bottom. And this one should be really straightforward. I mean, if the ball's top is less than or equal to 0, we know that it overlapped with the top. And then if the ball is greater than or equal to PONG of height, which we've done before, minus the ball of height. This is very similar logic that we've done in the past, which you can see right here. But in this case, we're doing the ball instead of AI paddle. So now we have two functions that check if we're overlapping on the top or if we're overlapping on the bottom. And we can do very similar logic here to make the ball bounce off the top and the bottom. So if it's overlapping with the top and the ball was going up to the right, then we need to go down to the right. And then otherwise we need to go down to the left. Let's see if this works. Is ball overlapping with top? I think I spelled something wrong. Overlapping with. Overlapping with. Okay, there we go. Let me resave this. I just forgot the keyword with. So now when it hits the top, it should change directions, and it did. Cool. All right, so now let's do the very last case, which is overlapping with bottom. So I'll just copy and paste this. And I don't know if this is the best way to do all this logic. There probably is a better way to do it. But feel free to leave me a comment below and tell me, hey man, you could just do like draw a rectangle outside of it and use the whole collides with logic library if you wanted to. And again, there's tons of ways to do different programming. So anyway, so if we're going towards the bottom, we need to check that if we're going down to the right. then we should now be going up and to the right. Otherwise, we should be going up and to the left. I think at this point, most of this game should be like done, other than checking if the player lost. So we hit the bottom, we can bounce off the paddle. Cool, so we have Pong pretty much working. There's a few finishing touches we need to do to finish this up. But we made a lot of progress, so let's go ahead and just commit what we have now. Actually, I just saw an issue, so it should have gone when it hit the paddle. It was going up and to the right. Whatever. Let's go ahead and commit this. So I'll say added functionality for handling collisions and reflections, I guess. Go ahead and commit that. So now for the final part, or not the final part, but for one of the closer to the final parts, is we need to check if the ball has gone out of bounds to the left or the right. And if it has, we just go ahead and say the game is over and print out an alert. So I'm going to write another function, and that's going to be called getWinner. So down here, I'm going to say function getWinner. And that's going to return a string if there is a winner, or false if there is no winner. So I'll say if the ball is out of bounds on the left, then we know that the AI has won, or the red player has won. Otherwise, if the ball, let me do else if the ball is out of bounds of the board, minus the ball out width, we know that we won, so the blue player has won. Otherwise, we just return false. And so now we can actually use this getWinner method when we update the ball and just say const winner is equal to getWinner. And if winner is defined, so if it did return a string and not false, we can just go ahead and print out an alert message and say winner has won the game. And in fact, what I'm going to do also is I want to just go ahead and write a different function called in-game. So I'll do in-game, takes in a winner as a parameter, and I'm going to print out that same alert and just say in-game with winner. I think we should be able to save this and see if it works. PONG window is not a function. Dun dun dun. Where's this printing out? Oh. PONG window. I don't know why I wrote window. It should be with. That's my bad. Let me change this back to 20. Alright, so I'm gonna let this ball go ahead and just win. And this ball speed is totally killing me here. It's totally killing me. So I'm gonna update that to 3. And I'm gonna make that go up and to the left. And boom, red has won the game. Now if I play the game some more, oh, it just keeps on going. And that's because we haven't really cleared the interval. All right, so we have the functionality. So when we go out of bounds on the left or the right, it's going to say someone has won the game. But at this point, what we need to do is to kind of like stop updating, because right now it's just going to keep on running that interval over and over again. So if we go back to our set interval function, I can say const interval is equal to that. I'll say let. That should be something we should change. Basically, we could set this up here. So let interval equal to set interval. And now when the game is over, I'll go back to our in-game. I can say clear interval. pass the interval. I can say interval is equal to null. That should be good in that case. See if this works. All right, so now the game is pretty much done. And you notice there's one thing: the player's AI paddle stopped, which is cool. The ball stopped, which is good. But we can still move our mouse and move our player's paddle. So to fix this, let's just go back to our mouse move callback function, and I'll just say if interval is not set, so the game is not even playing anymore, I'll just go ahead and return out of this. So I'll save this, and we can just go ahead and see if this worked. All right, so game's over. Cool, it's not following the mouse anymore, so we fixed that bug. And the last thing, hopefully, that we need to do is just add a restart button. So if I go back to my index file, and I go underneath this, I can say, give me a button called restart. Now we should have a restart button down here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and style it just a little bit, so we can like make it look nice. 1 second, okay. So basically I wanna move the button down a little bit, so I'll say margin top is 10. And I wanna go ahead and add the background color of kind of like a green. Now if I save that, you'll see it's down there with the green. Padding is gonna be 10. Font size, say 20 pixels. Border, none. Cursor is gonna be a pointer. Nice. Not sure if I missed anything. Width of 200 pixels, height of 50 pixels, see what happens. Nice. And then we can just go ahead and do some type of like hover state. So if you're hovering over it, just change the color to a darker green and make sure that this is working. And then finally, when we click on the restart button, we just want to restart our game. So if I go up here, I can say const restart is equal to restart. And I can add a listener to that. So I can say restart.click, call a function. And then basically what we want to do is just go ahead and call our initialization function, which I forgot what we called it. Maybe we don't even have one. So I'll just go ahead and make one called init, and I'll say function init. And set this over here. Basically, we want to redefine these every time. So I'm going to go const or let AI paddle is equal to null, and let ball is equal to null, and let player paddle equal to null. I don't think we use player paddle, so let's go ahead and get rid of that one. But here, I want to go ahead and copy all of this logic, except for the restart click. Oops. All right, let's make sure this is working. So every time we start the game, we want to go ahead and start the interval. We want to reset the ball, reset the paddle, and I think that should be good, other than we need to just call init right when the thing's done loading. I'll put this at the bottom. I'll call init right when the script's done. This AI paddle's already been declared.